Welcome to another episode of Your Favorite Libertarian. I'm your host, your favorite libertarian. This video will be doing a continuation of the last video that I did, which was getting rid of my Glock 19. And in that video, talk about a range session that I had with my dad on Father's Day. We rented some guns, mostly for him as he was looking at some different ones. But in that range session, I came across a few revelations of my own, and the first of which was, I think any of these would be better than my Glock 19. And that mostly has to do with the grip angle of the Glock 19. The natural grip angle is much more natural to me, I guess. I'm going to be showing you the range session that I had. I'll be actually having real shooting footage to show you. So, Joe, the one person that asked for that, there you go. And I will be shooting the M&P 2.0 compact, the M&P 2.0 full size, and the CZ P-10c. The first section of this video will be size comparisons between all three, because I know a lot of guys have questions about those as far as the difference between the compact and the full size M&Ps, and also the difference between those two guns compared to the CZ P-10c, because the CZ P-10c has kind of got some weird dimensions as far as what a traditional like Glock 17, Glock 19 size gun would be. So if you don't care about the size comparisons, go ahead and skip ahead to the next timestamp. But if you do, we'll proceed to the range and then we'll get to shooting. Pew! First up, the M&P 2.0s. We've got the compact on the left and the full size on the right. As you can see, the length of the slide is almost identical between these two. So if you're looking for something with a slightly longer grip, you could pretty much just go with the full size and you would be happy, and you'd have 2 more extra rounds. The sight radius is just barely a little bit longer in the 2.0 full size. As far as the frames go, those frames besides the grip length are identical, so you can slide swap as well if you want. This is a test. If you notice that the guns have switched sides, you get a gold star. On the left, we've got the full size. On the right, we've got the compact. And you can see there's quite a bit of difference in the length of grip, or not that much of a difference in the length of grip, depending on your perspective. For me, it's a big difference because I'm able to get all of my fingers on the front and most of the palm of my hand on the back with the full size, whereas I feel like there's just not enough grip with the compact, and my pinky's kind of in limbo, a little bit on, a little bit off. All right, let's throw the CZ into the mix. It's actually sitting on top of the full-size M&P 2.0, so you get an idea of the sight radius differences between the three, the slide length differences between the compact M&P and the CZ P-10c, and kind of some overall footprints. The grip length between the M&P 2.0 full size and the CZ P-10c surprised me. I don't understand for the life of me, and maybe someone on the internet can explain to me why. The grip length is practically identical between these two guns, but you get 2 less rounds with the CZ. The CZ on the right is a 15-round magazine flush, and the M&P 2.0 on the left is a 17-round magazine. Why? Another thing I was curious about was the size comparison between the compact M&P 2.0 and the CZ P-10c. They're both technically compacts, but are they? The slide length is pretty much identical to both guns, both M&Ps I mean, but the length of the grip is way different. Both hold 15-round magazines, so I'm confused as to why the CZ, again, is so much longer than the M&P 2.0 compact. But here we are. Both of these guns hold 15 rounds for some reason. One more gratuitous angle for you, and then we'll get shooting. Hey, check me out. I'm about to shoot some guns in a YouTube video. First, I wanted to shoot all 3 guns back to back to back just to get a feel for how they compared immediately. And I shot these groups at 5 yards. And as you can see, I'm shooting relatively slow. One of the things I noticed initially was that the triggers were different for all three, and the reason for that was the compact, for whatever reason, they only had available for rent with a manual safety on it. And if you know how a manual safety works, it does add a little bit of a difference to the feel of the trigger. For me, for the M&P 2.0 compact, it made the trigger feel like the wall was a bit harder to get through. So the M&P 2.0 full size was easier to shoot than the compact. And I would have to say that the P-10c had a really, really good trigger, but we'll get into some of the other things that kind of counteracted that. Let's see how we did. Next, I wanted to compare the M&P 2.0 compact to the M&P 2.0 full size. There's a couple of things that I noticed right off the bat with this comparison. Probably the most obvious and the most predictable of my predictions that came true is that I would be able to shoot the full size a lot easier than the compact. As you can see, when I'm shooting the full size, I have a lot more hand on the gun, and it tracks really well for me. The sights go back to where they're supposed to every time, and I just overall shoot it better. Both of these have the 2.0 grip texture, so they're both super grippy. I'm not worried about either of them flying out of my hands. It's just a matter of comfortability and ease of shooting. Let's check out the target. Whoa, that piece of paper is dead! As you can see, this target was shot at 10 yards with the compact and the full size. The targets that I shot the full size with are on the right and the bottom, and the ones that I shot the compact with are on the top and the left. There is a significant difference, in my opinion, between the groups of bigger targets between the compact and the full size, and then not as much, I feel, with the smaller targets. I felt more confident shooting the full size between the compact and the full size, and I was definitely more accurate, I would say, with the full size. So I'm not mad about that. Now we're going to bring the target a little bit closer in to the 5-yard mark, and we're going to pick up the speed in shooting, and I'm focusing on how quickly I can get the sights on target, take that first shot, reset the trigger. One thing you might notice when I'm shooting the P-10c is it rarely ever locks back to the rear on the last round. That, I think, has something to do with the slide release and its size and shape, but also just the way that I shoot. I also wanted to focus on some low readies, bringing it up and seeing how quickly I could acquire the sights from not seeing them and having them in my line of sight. So here's the 5-yard target. Let me show you what it looks like with all the groups circled so you can get a better idea of the accuracy shooting a little bit faster at 5 yards with the M&P 2.0 full size and the P-10c. One thing you might notice when looking at this target is that the P-10c groups are a little bit lower. And I think what that has to do with is the grip angle for the P-10c. It's kind of in between a Glock grip angle that's really severe and a really natural M&P grip angle. M&Ps are 18 degrees as far as the grip angle goes, which is similar to a 1911. Whereas the P-10c, you don't have the muscle memory of shooting Glocks to have it exactly where you want, and you don't have it being super natural in your hand to be able to shoot it really well. So as I was shooting faster, I noticed that I had the tendency to dip the nose down more with the P-10c as opposed to the M&P full size. One last thing I'll check for you guys and for myself is how the full size M&P and the compact M&P work with the TLR-1 HL. That's what I have, and I just switched it from one gun to the other back and forth just to see how they shot, how it felt, if I was able to actuate the light easily coming up on target and turning it off when I was done shooting. Kind of started running out of paper, so I just kind of made my own I just made my own targets with little stickers that I brought. 5 yards, by the way, in case you're wondering. I will say it seemed like between the compact and the full size, it didn't make that much of a difference when I put the light on. That seemed to help a little bit with the snap of the smaller gun. And I think, just towards the end of my hour at the range, I started getting used to both of the guns a little bit more as well. So one of my shots pulled a little high on the full size. I'm pretty sure I called that one. Second 2 rounds for the full size and the compact were still really good. Compact pretty much stayed consistent as to where I was aiming. The full size was a little bit high, but not as high as the last time, and then I blew out the little sticker with my second shot. Both were very good shooters, but I did shoot the full size faster and more accurately overall. Reloads were no problem. Slide release was no problem. I think I'm leaning towards the full-size M&P 2.0. Final thoughts. What were my overall impressions of these 3 guns? Well, I'll start with the cons, and then I'll talk about the positives of these. First, M&P full-size. Not really many cons with this one. The only thing I could really gripe about maybe is the trigger. Trigger's improved from previous generations. The only thing is it's got a lot of slack, and where it breaks is really far back. You're almost touching the rear of the trigger guard. So there's that, but you can put aftermarket triggers in it, and I didn't really have any issues using that trigger both in slow fire and quickly. It's got a lot of take up, but then nice wall, you know where the wall is, and then a crisp break. So yeah, not really many complaints there. The other thing would maybe be the size, but I would say it's kind of in a sweet spot for me as far as being able to get my whole hand on it, but being a little bit smaller than a Glock 17 length grip and still having 17 rounds. So as far as that goes, pretty happy with that. And also the slide length, not a huge difference between the compact and the full size. For the M&P 2.0 compact, I do have more cons because I have bigger hands. The first of which is that it's just too small for my hands. It's actually even smaller of a grip than a Glock 19 grip, which is saying something. Because of that shorter grip, even with that grip texture, that 2.0 grip texture, it was still just not as controllable when shooting. I had to readjust my hands a few times when I was shooting. And the slide wasn't that much shorter that it made sense to go with that over the full size. Cons for the CZ P-10c. Most of which have to do with the weird grip angle. It's not 18 degrees, it's not a Glock grip angle. It's kind of in between. And because of that, it doesn't present as natural and as quickly. And it also is harder to shoot really fast and be really precise with. One more thing that I wasn't a huge fan of with the CZ is that the slide rarely locked back on the last round. Maybe that has to do with how I'm holding it, but I have heard a lot of other reports of people having that same issue where they'll just get a click and they're like, oh, look at that, it's unloaded. Well, that would have been good to know. Now for the positive notes, the pros. We'll start with the M&P 2.0 full size. The first obvious pro is that because it's the full size, it is easier to shoot, meaning that you have a longer slide, better sight radius. It's got a little bit more weight to it. You have a longer grip, so you can get your whole hand on it. Unless you're like a giant, like a humongous human being, you can get your whole hand on it. The trigger is really good factory, so you wouldn't have to get an aftermarket trigger, but I probably would. You get iron sights, you get that 2.0 grip texture, so that gun is not going anywhere when you're shooting it. As far as all three of those guns that I tried, that one shot the best for me as far as a combination of speed and accuracy. Having that blend, I shot that the best. Now when I got down to really slow fire accuracy, the CC was a little bit better, but going back to that natural grip angle of the M&P 2.0, I just found that that seemed to be the best combination out of everything that I shot. Pros of the M&P 2.0 compact. One of the obvious pros is that being that it has a shorter grip, it is more than likely going to be easier to conceal, and it's going to weigh less. The length of the slide is not that big of a difference, so you are going to see some weight reduction there, but as far as sight radius, you're still going to get a pretty decent sight radius, and you'll still be able to make your hits. It's just a matter of having less grip, whether that's good or bad for you. It might be something that you prefer. If you have smaller hands and it still fits your whole hand, you can still get a full grip on the gun and you can shoot it really well, then that's great. Also, having 2 less rounds means that you have 2 less rounds in the magazine that's in the gun and 2 less rounds that's in the magazine that you're carrying as a backup. That equates to less weight as well, which a lot of people don't consider. So those things are good. And then all of the pros that you have with the M&P full size, you have as far as the 2.0 grip texture, the better trigger, metal sights. It looks cool too. There's that. Lastly, let's talk about the pros of the CZ P-10c. There's a lot on paper that's really good, and I, shooting it now, have an idea of what things on paper are real and what things are not in a practical sense. So the good things that it has going for it, it has really good texturing, really aggressive front and back strap texturing, and not as aggressive side texturing. So if you are carrying appendix or wherever else in your waistband and such in your bare skin, it's not going to rub as hard as, say, something like the M&P would. Like, M&P is pretty much sandpaper as far as the 2.0 grip goes. It's got a nice squared off trigger guard so you can get your booger hook on the bang switch really easily, even if you have gloves on. It has an undercut under the trigger so you can get a really nice high grip. And speaking of grip, you can get the web of your hand really deep in. Really deep in, so you can really feel like you've got control of that gun when you're shooting it under recoil. And speaking of recoil, it doesn't have much to speak of because it has such a low bore axis. You also have a fantastic trigger stock and metal sights. Talking to you, Glock. Where it fell just a little bit short for me was on, for its size, the capacity and the weird grip angle and the short sights. And when I mean short sights, I mean that, the slide itself is pretty short already, so it's got that really low bore axis, but the factory sights that come with it are really short. So if you are holding it kind of weird, and because of that weird grip angle, if you're shooting fast and when you come back on, you're pushing that nose of the gun down a little bit, you might lose your front sight because it's so short. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room for error there. But otherwise, I would say if you're milling it out for a red dot, that might not be as much of a concern, or if you're getting aftermarket sights, that might not be as much of a concern. And this gun could be, for you specifically, good to go and is a great shooter, slow speeds, and is a pretty flat shooter at fast speeds. So might be something that you want to do. It's not for me compared to the other guns I've shot so far. I might be trying out some other ones. I don't know. It'll depend on the comment section here below on what I should try out and if I can get my hands on those particular guns. But those would have to be, I'd say, at least in my opinion, the pros for those 3 guns that I shot today. So that's going to be it for me and my sensational range sesh with the potential Glock killers. If you like this video, be sure to hit the button that looks like this on your screen. If you'd like to follow me along my journey to my next venture in the handgun world, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified every week when I post a new video. If you think this video would be helpful to other people that you know, go ahead and share it. I don't mind. If you think I'm completely wrong with my findings for the different guns that I checked out, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know if there's anything that you would recommend that you didn't see in this video, and let me know if there's anything that I missed while evaluating these different guns for my possible new carry option. As always, thanks for watching. Stay free. God bless.